Remember when Disney seemed to be the only major studio that put out subpar Dolby Atmos audio mixes on their 4K releases? Well, this seems to be changing and not in the direction you think. One of the major joys about owning your own home theater is when a movie is brought to physical media, you get the best possible audio experience. Whether that was from even the DVD days to Blu ray, 4K, even Laserdisc, I felt had some solid audio offerings for the time. But it seems lately that more and more studios are, for lack of a better word, nerfing their audio mixes when it comes to home physical releases. Pretty much since forever, Disney has been the main culprit in this. We've even coined a phrase, Atmouse, when it comes to their 4K releases, because really at the end of the day, when you pipe it through your home theater, you're not really getting the best. It's sometimes very anemic in presence. Audio activity through the surround environment is very limited. It's not very engaging or dynamic. Even height channels suffer typically when it comes to those type of releases that Disney was mostly responsible for putting out. But lately, it seems a couple other studios are following that suit, and I find that to be a very unfortunate development. I mean, imagine the excitement. You're sitting at your favorite local cinema. It has an awesome soundtrack. The audio sounds great, and the first thing that pops into your head is, I cannot wait to get this home. And a couple of months later, you bring it home, and it's just not nearly as good. Of course, you can attribute many factors to this. And I'm going to use the example of the recent release of F1, which, for starters, I'm very glad we got a physical copy of it. But the inherent sound design, even watching it at my local IMAX, which has a really great sound system, wasn't terribly exciting. So, of course, when you brought it home, it's not nearly as good as what it could have been. I mean, if you take a movie released just a couple years ago in the same space, Gran Turismo, that's a demo audio experience from start to finish. But F1, it just doesn't have it. But you can't exactly blame that on the transition from theatrical to physical media. That's just baked into the sound design. But a lot of times, it isn't that way. You get a really awesome experience at the theater, and then you bring it home. Let's say it what it is, it kind of sucks. I understand not all movies are created equal, but you can't help that something is getting lost in translation from, what we got even 10 years ago to today, when nerfing audio mix at home seemed like, oh, that's a Disney thing. It really is. Warner Brothers, unfortunately, seems to be more often than not, when it comes to physical 4K releases and their Dolby Atmos tracks, you're getting a hit or miss kind of situation. For every Sinners or Weapons, you get something like James Gunn's Superman, which, quite frankly, is not the best audio. You even compare that to Man of Steel, a Superman film, Zack Snyder. I mean, there's that whole debate, but come on, I would put Man of Steel up against Superman's sound design any day of the week. It would crush it. So what seems to be happening? Well, there's probably a lot of explanations. I mean, for one, it seems, and this is a long-standing theory that some subscribe to, I do in certain cases, that they seem to be catering for either the TV speaker or soundbar crowd. Now, let's be honest, guys. When it comes to home theater setups, we are very in the minority in that. We get the big screen, we get the whole Dolby Atmos audio. We're not exactly who they are catering to when it comes to the finished product. It's a shame. I really feel that this is something that I don't know if I would call it a malicious thing, but I would feel it's definitely intentional. Disney has been doing this for years. Their MCU entire slate is from your early, starting from Iron Man, I would say even a little bit past the first Avengers movie. Their audio mixes are really good, but then a switch flipped and it became more about the soundbar crowd. And studios like Warner Brothers seem to be doing it as well for certain movies, not all of them, which is kind of more of a puzzling thing. One big recent example is Twisters on 4K, which, to be fair, is not a Warner Brothers release. It is Universal, which is also more shocking because typically their audio is top notch when it comes to their releases. And this is more or less, I think, one of those earlier examples where it's just baked into the sound design. Twisters has some great dynamic audio. I have no problem with a lot of what's going on in the Dolby Atmos. But if you compare just a random Twister or tornado scene from the original Twister to Twisters, you can't even, there's no comparison. The original film in the mid 90s had more oomph, more presence, more impact. And this one, it's not nearly as pronounced. It's still fun, but you can definitely tell a difference, especially if you're familiar with the first movie. I'm going to go to a movie that was recently released from Disney or slash Sony, Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. When that was on DVD, that was probably one of the most impactful and dynamic audio mixes on that format. I would stack that up against many titles. But fast forward to 4K, where yes, we did get a audio upgrade. It's not, I would say it's not nearly as impactful. It feels dialed back a little bit. There's still some good presence, but it's not what it should be. The Atmos on Master and Commander does have some many entertaining moments, but it's lacking that oomph, that presence. And it's just something that, I don't know, something just gets lost along the way. So taking Warner Brothers F1 aside, another theory out there is that there are different home mix teams when it comes to what arrives on physical and digital that are handling each of these releases. And it's like a, title by title basis. Because I refuse to believe that you get something as awesome as Sinners and Weapons, and then over to James Gunn's Superman, it's just not nearly as impactful. But then you also have some really great stuff. Dune Part 2, incredible stuff. Blade Runner 2049, I love going back to that one. The audio on that is pretty impressive. It also came from a slightly different time, but it's just a very interesting thing that's happening. So there are a lot of theories out there of why this is the case, but we as home theater people expect the best. I don't think that's, asking for too much. We've invested in the equipment. We have all the means, but if they can't deliver it on their end, I don't know what we're even doing here. So why does it also seem that Hollywood, in certain cases, is dialing back when it comes to the audio? That, to me, is an even more interesting question, because you have a movie like F1, going back to that one again, that on paper should have been just a demo sound design. This comes from the director of Top Gun Maverick, one of the best sound design movies of that year. It's a very weird kind of, contrast in that area. But there are a lot of other movies that are just also playing it too safe. MCU is going to MCU. There really is not much we can do for Disney at this point. But I like to think that there are still studios that do incredible work. Paramount, for instance, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, outstanding audio. Outstanding. Love it. In fact, I love a lot of Paramount new releases that come out on 4K. I mentioned Universal. They're above average in most cases. I really enjoyed what they did in some of their recent releases, like The Fall Guy, the How to Train Your Dragon live action sounded really good. Plus, you get the additional IMAX scenes, which I'm a fan of. But there are also studios out there that put out really good regular 4K audio mixes. Lionsgate being another one. They do a wonderful job. There are quite a few out there, but I don't like where this trend seems to be going. I don't know if it's just something that is kind of a fluke. Last year or two seems to really kind of highlight some of the cracks in the surface. But I hope, studios like Warner Brothers, who has such an incredible catalog of stuff, both new and old, just make sure at the end of the day, when it comes to your home releases, put out the best audio. That's all we ask for. We don't want anything nerfed to oblivion. I don't want something subpar. Once again, I realize we are the small minority in the customer base, but that doesn't make us less valuable. So I don't know. I want to leave it to you. What do you guys think? Do you feel that some sound designs when they come to 4K physical media, are just lacking. Name some of the examples that you would give the rest of us. Talk about it down below. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. So until next time, this is Adam with Movie Guide 365. I will see you at the movies.